A warm welcome to all of you here. I welcome you all to Bangalore Business Literature Festival 2022. This is the 8th edition of the fest, and it is with great joy that I'm here today, this afternoon, a lovely afternoon in Bangalore where I'm sitting, to welcome you all on day one of the fest. I'll take a minute to explain what the fest is about and its personality and its character and how it and its genesis. Bangalore Business Literature Fest was founded in 2015 because we saw an opening, an opportunity for focusing on reading, writing, and publishing that was dedicated to business books in India. There are many literature fests, and there were literature fests even back then. But as it happens, business books don't get much of play. They don't get much of highlight in those fests because a lot of genres, a lot of other kinds of books are discussed. So the founders of the fest felt that it's great to have this kind of a forum, a platform, where the intent is to nurture and celebrate and foster the spirit of publishing, writing, and reading business books. And that is how BBLF, as we call it, was founded in 2015. So from those humble beginnings, we've come a long way. Like I said, this is the 8th year running, and that makes us the largest and the longest running business festival in India, business literature festival in India. Over the years, we must have hosted more than 200 speakers of varied stripes, all of them leading thinkers, authors, startup founders, corporate honchos. So people from extremely interesting and varied backgrounds, they've graced the occasion over these last 8 years. Along with them, thousands of readers, thousands of people like you have attended the fest. So I think we've created over 8 years an ecosystem, a rich ecosystem of speakers, readers, partners, and I must thank our partners also, our sponsors. So they've stood by us. So that is the kind of ecosystem that we've enriched, that we've nurtured over these years. One of the heartening things for us, and one of the hallmarks, is that Bangalore Business Literature Fest is all about deep, engaging, and transformative conversations. So we have a relaxed setting, and we take a topic which is based on the theme of a book. And in the last few years, especially, we've been taking on the model of fireside chats. So fireside chats are in a Q&A model, or in the model of a conversation, where we have 2 or 3 people sitting around a table and talking. So there are questions and there are answers, and these are very stimulating. And most of our sessions are usually between 30 minutes and 45 minutes. So that's perfect for you, perfect for us. In recent years, the fest has grown along certain specific dimensions, a key one being that we've had speakers and audiences from abroad. And that's because we took the fest online. A heartening thing for me personally and for the entire team here is that we've kept the fest running even through the pandemic years. The last 2 years were extremely bad for all of us, but with the support of everyone in the BBLF ecosystem, we managed to pull it off. And we had extremely good sessions last year and the year before that. This is a year where I think there is a bit of, the mood is a little sober. And as I speak to you, some of my thoughts go back to the people who've been affected by the pandemic. This is the first for BBLF and generally for the world around. It's just now that we're emerging from the shadows of that blight, of that pandemic. And therefore, we in the team have come here with, there is hope, resilience, and relief riding high. And I think this year too, we've got a wonderful lineup of speakers, and I will explain a little later what we have lined up for you day after day. I'll explain the program details in a bit. So for now, what I'm going to do is invite the fest chair, V Raghunathan, to inaugurate this year's edition of BBLF. But before he comes on screen, I want to give you a quick intro, a glimpse into the man. We call Raghunathan Raghu. So Raghu is an academic, a corporate executive, an author, a columnist, a hobbyist. He taught at IMA for 2 decades until 2001, after which he was the president of ING Vaishya Bank for 4 years. From 2005 January to 2018 October, he was the CEO of GMR Vairalakshmi Foundation, which he steered towards many prestigious awards. From October 2015 to September 2020, He was the director of the India campus of School of Business, and he is now an adjunct professor in the same business school. Raghu is a prolific writer. Prolific is not the word. It's if there is a word beyond prolific, he is that. So he's authored nearly 600 academic papers and multiple books and many articles as a columnist. In fact, he's got 15 books. He's published cases in different fields in different publications on capital markets, behavioral economics, corporate finance, and whatnot. Amongst his many books, his latest is titled Irrationally Rational. The 10 Nobel laureates script the story of behavioral economics. So Raghu, I welcome you on screen and request you to please inaugurate this year's fest.
Well, thank you, Ganesh. You have outlined the Bangalore Business Lit Fest's activities fairly well in summary. And thank you for that introduction. Let me welcome all the participants to the Bangalore Business Lit Fest or Bangalore Business Literature Festival, but we call it BBLF in brief. You know, the early lit fests in general used to be a meeting point between writers and readers of books. They would leisurely exchange ideas with each other, so the book readers would know what to look forward to from the writers. Writers would get ideas from the books, and thus the book industry would go on. But over a period of time, literature festivals have gradually grown into a celebration of books, book readers, book writers, ideas, thoughts, book publishers, libraries, and even general public, so that they can be brought closer to the world of books. But of course, in my view, the foundation of all books and book fests depends on or is based on book readers, without whom the book industry would come to a grinding halt. You know, Ganesh already mentioned that a lot of changes have been happening in the world of lit fests, especially following COVID. In fact, a whole lot of them, including us, have had to go online. So much so that even the oldest lit fest that we know of today, which is the Times and the Sunday Times Cheltenham Literature Festival in UK, perhaps the oldest literature festival, which started in 1949, went online in 2020. And so did our Jaipur Literature Festival. Even this year in January, it was turned into a hybrid festival. So January 28 to February 1, it was physical, while it was broadcast online from January 28 all the way to February 6. Of course, not all literature festivals are about books alone. You know, many of them are fairly laissez-faire and even go on to cover movies, food, relationships, finance, and so forth. And every large city today in India and elsewhere in the world for that matter, and today even smaller ones in India have their own literature festival. In fact, only yesterday I returned from the Ooty Literature Festival, which was a very boutique little lit fest over there, which was well attended by both in terms of speakers as well as audience. But of course, you know, given population of 140 crore or 1400 million, it's only to be expected that there will be, in absolute terms, a large number of readers, and therefore the future of Litfest seems to be fairly robust. And in fact, many of them, you know, compete cheek by jowl in various large cities. For example, in Calcutta alone or Kolkata, there are two back-to-back literature festivals in winter. The EPJ Kolkata Library Festival and Literary Festival in December is immediately followed by Kolkata Literary Meet in January. Similarly, in Mumbai, the Mumbai International Literary Festival, or the Tata Literature Live as they call it, and the Times Literary Carnival happen in December, closely followed by Kala Ghoda Arts Festival. But of course, Kala Ghoda Arts Festival is not just a literary festival, it is much beyond, and it comes in January, immediately following the other two in December. Most lit fests tend to be fairly liberal, but the larger literary festivals are typically weighted in favor of literary and popular fiction most of the time, and with celebrities. Uh, Few literary festivals concentrate on non-fiction, exceptions apart, of course. But of course, they have to depend on fiction and they have to depend on celebrities because that's the only way to attract larger participation. But non-fiction world, whether of readers or of writers, has usually been less represented in most such literary festivals. While most of them are general literature festivals, there are many dedicated ones coming up these days. You have the Green Lit Fests, you have the Business Lit Fest that we have started, for instance. There is Bookaroo, which is Children's Book Fest, Sustainability Fests, which our Benedict himself runs, comic book lit fests, and graphic novel fests, and so on, to name a few specialized areas of festivals in this genre. And it is in this context, I'm very happy to say, which Ganesh also mentioned earlier, that we were probably the first to add the genre of business books to this range, especially in India, when we started Bangalore Business Literature Festival 8 years ago. However, since then, a couple of newer ones have entered this category, including the India Business Literature Festival of the Business World, which started only in 2018. Now, we at Bangalore Business Literature Festival have chosen to celebrate non-fictional literature, essentially business literature, with everyday folks who have a skin in the game of business literature, young or old, who are potential material for future celebrities or book lovers. Typically, BBLF picks a theme every year. And the theme this year is startups. We introduce a lot of startup literature, the new books that have been coming up, startup success, failure, and resilience stories, startup funding challenges, startups and technology, potential frauds, including in startups and business in general, social responsibility and social purpose of startup businesses, decoding behavioral economics for businesses, what makes startup entrepreneurs tick, the environment of student startups, and much more. So as you can see, the running theme underlying the entire fest is that of startups. And of course, we have our Best Business Book Award, which is the C.K. Prahlad Best Business Book Award, which is the 4th year of the award, if I'm not mistaken. This fest, BBLF, is anchored by a strong team. The motor of the festival, the real man behind everything that happens in the festival, is Benedict Permanent, who is the CEO of the festival and a co-founder. Shankar Parameswaran is another of the co-founders from Knowledge at Wharton, who is our other pillar. And I'm the third one, a co-founder too. We have an extended team comprising Ganesh Vanchishwaran and Ganesh Kirti, then Kashyap Kompela, Devabrati Ghosh, and Nayana Natarajan. In short, we have been growing in the course of time, 8 years. We have plenty to show for it. And we hope and expect to grow from strength to strength. And we are hoping that from next year, we would be able to go completely offline and have physical events. This year, only the first 4 days are completely online, except the last day, which is at Bangalore International Center, which is a physical event. With that, I'll wrap up and welcome you all to the Bangalore Business Literature Festival and declare the festival open. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Raghu. Thank you so much. If I may just add, and I want to ask you a couple of questions about this. You rightly mentioned that it's very important for us to meet offline. right? And hopefully next year it will be a completely offline affair. Uh, I believe a lot of what happens here, and one of the stimulating aspects of our fest or any other good fest for that matter, are the conversations, right? Because ultimately you do have books, but books have a backstory. A lot is compressed within a book, and books, honestly, all the books at least, may not be accessible to everyone out there, to all of us. So I think one of the things we do in this fest is bring the best of minds, authors, people like you rightly said, people who have skin in the game, whether that's startups or matured organizations, put them on the stage. I think it's a crucible of brilliant minds who then have brilliant conversations.
Absolutely. Ganesh, you have said it yourself. The only reason, of course, being online has its plus sides. We are able to get people, as you said, we are getting people internationally, which will not be
Right.
very easy, or it will make the any festival 10 times more expensive if they were all to be paid for their
That's
travel
right.
and being put up and so on. So there is a
Right.
lot going for the festivals, keeping part of it offline. But there
Right.
is that bonding that a reader
Yes.
wants to see with authors, especially in
Yes.
some cases. I'm not saying it's necessary in all cases, but
Right.
some human contact is also desirable. So it is in that sense that I was hoping that we'll be able to
Yes.
have a better balance of online
Of
and
course.
offline. Probably that is the future. For all we know, pure physical events, except those festivals which are where finance is not a problem, because in most cases literature festivals can range, the budgets can range from a few lakhs to a few crore. A
Yes.
Jaipur
Yes.
Literature Festival is a very different order altogether. We are
True.
all more niche, more small,
More
more
boutique.
focused little fests. And I
Correct.
think, excepting for those where money is not an issue or they're backed by large corporates, as Jaipur Literature Festival is, for instance, I think for people like us, it's a blessing in disguise that now that out of compulsion we went on online, we will be able to do it in a hybrid mode, probably going further. But maybe at
Correct.
least 50% will be offline and 50% will be online.
Right, right, right. We'll be able to have the best of both worlds, the
Best of
online
both the
and the
worlds.
offline.
Right.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
you're right. So this year we do have the last day alone, which is offline. We have
Right.
5 hours dedicated to that, right? Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
My other question to you, Raghu, is you've been with us from the beginning, from the time this fest was nothing but a seed of thought. So from then to now, it's inevitable. We, like any other entity, we've also grown, we've evolved, not only grown, but we've also evolved, we've matured in different senses. So, your quick take, please, from day one of the fest to where we sit today. How would you encapsulate these 8 years for the fest?
You see, I have no doubt that we have made plenty of mistakes during our journey, but we have learned from those mistakes and we have built upon the learnings from those mistakes. And people like Benedict Parmanand and Shankar et al. Have, and with their team like you, have been putting in their best to make it a competent and yet a small lit fest. We have not
Right,
really, okay, one may turn around and say maybe we didn't get a very big turnout. But I think we were not even looking for very big turnout, because
that's right,
business
that's right.
literature by definition is more niche. We wanted
Yes,
it to be more intimate, a little deeper, with the people, like-minded people coming for business literature. There's a whole
right,
lot of youngsters out there in colleges and business schools and what have you, who want to understand what non-fiction literature, especially business literature, is all about. So I think we are beginning to serve that purpose. And I have no
right.
doubt that we have a long way to go. But already today, if you just go on a website and type business literature festivals,
Hmm.
you find only BBLF
That's
mainly.
right. Yes,
The
yes.
only other one is the Business Worlds, which I mentioned, the
Correct, correct.
India Business Lit Fest.
Right.
But we come right up there, and I'm sure we will, Benedict keeps on putting a lot of time on it, especially, from somewhere from June onwards. He's fully focused on this till the event is over.
True.
So I'm very optimistic, and I do believe that we are on to a good highway.
And we will keep pushing it one notch or a few notches
Absolutely.
year after year.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Raghu. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Uh,
Ganesh.
it's been lovely. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Uh, yeah, sure. I mentioned early on when I opened this, earlier in the evening, that we've built an ecosystem, and it is this ecosystem that has nurtured this festival year after year. And if we are where we are today, it's because of three or four key kinds of people. One is obviously you, the audience, but for you, we wouldn't be here, the reader, right? And then there are the speakers, people who come on stage and enrich us with their thoughts, with their work, with their questions, their answers. And then there are behind the scenes partners and sponsors. And I want to spend a minute in introducing them to you now. So, Kirti, can I have that slide on screen, please? Yes. So, a huge round of thanks to our title sponsor, ICFI Business School. They've been with us for the last few years, and they've seen us grow year after year. And much of that credit has to go to them for their backing. The award for the best business book, which we pick out every year in the name of CK Prahlad, as Raghu said earlier today, is sponsored by TVS Capital. And thanks to them. Yes, next. And then we have a small family, a small community of partners. They've also stayed with us year after year. And I want to take this time out to thank them for being with us and for enriching the world of BBLF with their presence. Indian Institute of Management Bangalore is our knowledge partner. Your Story has been our media partner for a long time. And they, year after year, they diligently bring out stories on the fest as a precursor in the run up to the fest and afterwards. Thank you so much for that. Thanks, Your Story. Tamala and Arani are our lovely boutique gifting partners. So if you haven't heard of them, you should go check them out. You should go visit their websites. They have some wonderful work. Our library partners are Just Books and K-Lib. Blossoms, who doesn't know, at least who's lived or spent some time in Bangalore, doesn't know of Blossoms. Blossoms on Church Street are our bookstore partners. And if you've registered for the 17th, that is Saturday, the Startup Literature Day, and if you land up at Bangalore International Center, you can get to see a wonderful display of books brought to us by Blossom. So please do come, and please, this is a reminder for you to register for that day separately. And finally, the Journalism School, NJIM. Thank you to the Journalism School partner. Also, thanks a lot for them. And all of these people together have created, like I said, nurtured this ecosystem. So thanks a lot to our partners and sponsors.